Hello, and welcome to Tim Conley Drums live stream. Gonna wait for a few people to come in and we'll get our live stream started. Make sure you have your tasty beverages. I'm drinking ginger ale today. And we are going to have an interesting chat on this Labor Day. I'm not doing any labor today, and I'm sure most people out there aren't. I'm pretty sure this is a pretty much a nationwide Canada-US holiday, and then tomorrow back to the grind. Tomorrow the grind starts where everybody goes back to school, and all the kids go back to school, and of course everybody else goes back to work except for those retired or unemployed people. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be starting teaching again tomorrow. I mean, I was teaching over the summer, but for those of you that work as musicians, you know that the summer lessons slow down quite dramatically compared to what you would be teaching normally during the actual school year. So tomorrow I start teaching at the music school that I teach at. So I'm going to be teaching there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays, roughly from 4 till 9. And then I'm also going to be doing some teaching out of my home, which I always do, which is the Tim Conley Drums. So I'll be teaching out of my house, and that starts up, well, technically it never really stopped because I was teaching yesterday out of my house, but in terms of relating it to the school year, it's starting Thursday is going to be my first full busy day where I get, all my students are returning back that left for the summer, and I've got some new students. So I'm always excited about starting off with some new students. So I'm a little bit limited. I was at the nurse earlier today. The wound is healing up nice. I have an open wound. I've talked about it a little bit. I have an open wound on my hand after my surgery. They didn't stitch it, so I have to go and see a nurse. It's now been changed from every day to every 2 days. And because it's an open wound, they pack it. They put these strips in it, little about this long. They pack it in, they stuff it in there. That's a lot of fun in an open wound. And then they bandage it up, and then they, put this hand wrap on it, and I'm good to go. So that's my normal routine right now. Now I've been doing this with this hand for a year and a half, so I hate to say it, but I'm used to it. But I was talking to a few of my students, and I want to talk about that just before we get into the topic today about keeping it real. One of the things I want to talk about is I don't want you to go out and injure either one of your hands. I got my glasses here. Yay. I'll just put them over here for a second, but I don't want you to injure either one of your hands. But here's what I want you guys to do. I'm going to put a challenge out to you. Now, most people are right-handed. I happen to be a lefty. And whatever is your strong hand, I want you to, just for one day, enter my world. And my world, being a lefty, is not being able to use my left hand for barely anything. A year and a half ago, when I first got my hand problem, and I was bandaged up like this, but I couldn't move at all. Like, this is actually pretty decent mobility. But when I first had my surgery, I couldn't move at all. Like, it was completely wrapped up. I had no finger movement. And when that happened, I was unable to use my left hand. So over the last year and a half, I've learned how to use my right hand to do almost everything. Now, I can't write. Let's not get crazy. But the challenge I'm going to put out to you is, just for one day, pretend that whatever your strong hand is injured. You can't use it. Use your weak hand for everything. Now, the reason I tell my students about this is because everybody complains that I teach that's right-handed. Almost all my students happen to be right-handed. They all complain that they got the weak left hand. So when they're playing, the left hand is much weaker than their right hand. One of the things that I discovered not only through study in terms of, you know, my teachers talking about developing the weak hand, but I discovered this on my own, that the brain is not connected in the same manner as your strong hand. So here's a perfect example. If you try and do everything with your weak hand that you normally do with your strong hand, you'll find that your brain gets messed up because your brain is so used to you, for my Canadian friends, cutting the milk bag. For my American friends, unscrewing the lid and pouring your milk into your coffee or into a glass. Using scissors with your weak hand. Reaching for a cup. Anything that you normally would do with your strong hand, when you try and do the same thing with your right hand, in my case, whatever your weak hand is, you'll find that your brain gets messed up. You cannot do to the same level with your weak hand what you normally do with your strong hand. So my challenge to you as drummers, to increase your drumming ability, your weak hand, use that weak hand, create the connection from your brain to the weak hand, and your left hand, in most cases, it's the left hand that's weak. Your left hand's going to get stronger because the brain connection is going to get stronger. And that's what I discovered. Now, I discovered that by accident because I was forced to learn how to do things with my right hand. However, I mean, my right hand wasn't particularly weak to my left hand in terms of drumming. It was years ago, but having spent so much time studying, taking lessons, practicing, you know, I took lessons with some incredible drummers that really worked on my technique. Dom Famularo being top dog. Spent a lot of time with Dom, Joe Morello, really great technical players. And Todd Zuckerman is another one. Dave Weckl, I even took some lessons with Weckl, and he, you know, was talking about hand technique as well with me. And so I never really had I mean, it was weak years ago, but it got a lot better. And then my right hand started to develop and get better and better and better. And then the hands balanced itself out. Now, obviously, my left is weak now because of being injured. But to balance them out, you've got to make the brain connection. Oh, I got a comment here, but I will need my glasses to see this. Let's just have a look at this. Do you think traditional grip somehow compensates to equalize the difference? I always felt it sure helps the weak hand bounce. No, I don't. Because whether you are a traditional grip player, which I am, or a match grip player, which I am. Now, some guys will say, well, you're either a traditional or you're a match. I totally disagree with that. I've developed both. Now, my match grip is better than traditional, but I like to play traditional. I like to play matched. And I don't think that the traditional grip is any different than the match grip in terms of the weak hand bounce. You can get the left hand to bounce really nice. You can also get the left hand, in traditional grip, and you can also get the left hand to bounce really nice in match grip. Check out some of my videos, which I'm going to be doing some more as soon as this heals. Some of my technique videos on match grip. Mainly, most of my videos are in match grip. I don't think I only have a couple of traditional grip videos, but in match grip, learning how to do the free stroke, learning how to do the Buddy Rich push-pull, learning how to do the exercise for the free stroke, really important, learning how to do the flagpole snap, which I haven't done a video on. That's going to be my next video, flagpole snap, which is a technique that I learned from Todd Zuckerman. Really awesome technique. Anyways, Dash, thank you very much for your comment/question. Very nice, man. So what I wanted to talk about today was how we need to, thanks, I will heal. Oh, thanks, I will heal quickly. Thanks, Dash. Thank you very much, man. I really appreciate that. Dash, work on your technique. Starting, let's just say your left hand is your weak hand. Start with your weak hand and work the weak hand as if it's your strong hand, meaning there's always a tendency to start everything with our strong hand. Now, I'm left-handed. I can start rolls right-handed or left-handed. I also can play left-handed or right-handed. That's a whole story in itself, how I learned how to do that. But I can play from a left hand lead, playing open playing, I'm talking about on the hi-hat, playing like this, open playing. Or of course, the old school traditional way that I learned how to play, which is right hand reaching over to the hi-hat. So open or right. And it's really good to do some open-handed playing because, again, that left hand connection that I was talking about. To make the left hand connect, you have to generate the brain to understand the weak hand can become the strong hand, but the connection has to be there, okay? So I hope that helps, Dash. Okay, now, keeping it real. What I wanted to talk about today is the ego part of when you're in a musical situation, there's a lot of ego involved. Sometimes the ego can be fragile, which is not good, which means they can't take criticism. Now, I understand about people not being able to take criticism. When I was much, much younger, and even to today, if somebody criticizes what I'm doing and they know what they're talking about, I'm open to listening. I'm open to listening. So for example, let's say I'm in a studio setting and the producer, well-known producer, I'll give you an example of when I worked with Terry Brown. Terry Brown was Rush's producer. He also produced one Who album. He also produced Donovan, the guy that sang the song Mellow Yellow. I think that was Donovan. And he also produced Cutting Crew, that song, I Just Died in Your Arms Tonight. And of course, Terry produced 12 Rush albums. The guy's a legend. When I was working with him, whatever he said, it went. I mean, the guy is a brilliant, brilliant producer. And he didn't really criticize me at all. Actually, he was quite happy with what I was doing. So there wasn't a lot of criticism. But what I'm saying is, if there was, and this is a guy that's in the know, listen to him. Put your ego aside, and you think you should be doing it one way. If a guy like Terry Brown is telling you to maybe try something a little different, he's a guy you want to listen to. Now, on the flip side, if you're talking to some guy that doesn't know anything and he's trying to tell you about music or drumming or, guitar playing, keyboard playing, whatever, but he really doesn't know what he's talking about, well, that's when you can step up and say, hey, man, I might know a little bit more about this topic than you. I'm just going to stick with what I'm doing. I've had so many instances where, drunk people in a venue, and they come up to you and they start telling you about how, they're such a great musician. And I'll tell you a funny story. I'll never forget this. I'm in a bar, playing a bar gig. Guy comes up to me and the singer on a break and says, can I come up and play some songs with you guys? I'm a drummer. I'd like to come up and play. And I tell him straight up, I don't allow that. I was the band leader. We do never allow that. Don't ever allow that in any band unless you know the person or you have prearranged for this person to come up. Maybe they're a guest artist that maybe you don't know them, but they're a guest artist that you've prearranged or you know them to some degree and you want to have them come up. That's fine. If you're doing a wedding gig and the groom wants to come up and sing a song to his bride, that's fine. That's a whole different thing. But what I'm talking about is this story. I'm in a bar gig. Guy wants to come up and play drums. Don't know what he plays like. Don't know anything about him. Plus, we have a strict set list. It's a professional band. The bar owner expects us to play at our highest level. The crowd expects to hear a good band. So instead of me just outright saying no, I say to him, do you know how to play with a click live? His response is, what's a click? Okay, the conversation's over. We're done. I'm not talking to you anymore. You're a drummer. You don't know what a click is. Conversation is over. So I just said to him, I'm sorry, man. You know, and he was not happy and giving me the glare for the rest of the night, but I really didn't care because if you're not, I wouldn't have allowed him to come up. Even if he said, oh, yeah, I know how to play with a click, I wouldn't have let him come up because I just don't like doing that. And now, if I, when I've done gigs, slip my mind what these gigs are called off the top of my head, but I've done so many of these gigs where it's not a karaoke situation. I've done that too. That was horrible. Band karaoke nightmare. But a situation where a band gets hired to come in and play, and then people bring instruments. They might bring a guitar or a vocal mic or drumsticks or something, and they get up, and it's understood. They pick a song and they get up, and it's understood they're going to play with the band. That's a totally different thing. I'm trying to remember what that's called. I've done that so many times. I haven't done it for quite a long time though. But you know, they have a standard band in there that plays the plays the songs, but then they have guests come up and sing. It's usually someone coming up playing guitar or singing. I would say about 85% of the time, it's somebody coming up and singing a song, somebody coming up and playing guitar. The funny part is when people come up and they want to do their original music and they have to very quickly go over the arrangement with the band, but they're amateur musicians, they're not pros, so they don't know how to explain A, B, A, B, A form style, or chorus, verse, intro, verse, chorus, bridge, pre-chorus, all that stuff. They don't know the lingo, so they try to explain it to you, and you just gotta, man, just play and we'll follow you. Give us the basic, give the guitar player a few chords, and then we're just going to try and follow you. So generally speaking, I do not try and let people come up on stage. So the ego part, that's got nothing to do with ego, by the way. That's just trying to keep your show moving. I remember another time letting a guy come up on stage. I don't remember. I wasn't in charge of the band. This was a different band. And a guy got up on stage, took the guitar player's guitar, and broke the G string. Are you freaking kidding me? Breaks the G string on his guitar. I think it was the middle of the second set. We had to finish the rest of the set and the third set with the guitar player using an acoustic guitar. He didn't bring any extra strings, which is like, are you kidding me? He brought an acoustic guitar, and because we had a couple of songs that had acoustic guitar in it, and he had to finish the show on the acoustic guitar, which really sucked, to be totally honest, because we were a rock band and we weren't a folk rock band. So I'm just going to hit this comment here. Being a left-handed drummer, I was forced to play drums right-hand setup. Same with me, man. Kevin, that's exactly what happened to me. So quickly, sidetracking, because I'm going to respond to your comment here. I played left-handed, which was left hand on the hi-hat, left foot on the bass drum, right foot on the hi-hat. I was a lefty drummer, okay? Lefty. Phil Collins. Not that I can play like Phil, but I just meant when I started off, I was playing left-handed. And the drum teacher, after about a month, got tired of switching the drums around because he's got to go from left setup to right setup, move the floor tom, move the hi-hat, move the cymbals, move the ride. It was a pain. He got sick of it. So after a month, he says to me, I was 10 years old at the time, you just got to learn how to play right-handed. And I just said, I'm 10. I just said, okay. So switches me over to right-handed. But I was always able to still play left-handed, but not switching the kit around. I probably couldn't play like this now, because this was, 48 years ago, 49, almost 50 years ago. So I play open-handed. So open-handed playing is playing like this. So left hand on the hi-hat, and your right hand strikes the snare, open-handed playing. Now, I'm still not as good open-handed because I don't do it all the time as I am playing crossing over, because I'm way more comfortable crossing over, but I can still play open-handed. So if my right hand, for whatever reason, you know, I do a song that's got a lot of 32nd notes or 16ths in it, and I start to get tired, I can switch to my left hand, take and give my right hand a break if I want to. Or as in the Gary Chester book, for any of you drummers out there that have studied in the Gary Chester book, Gary in his book teaches you how to play right and left. So you're on the ride cymbal playing the right-handed, and you're reading, and you're playing a melody or an ostinato rather with 3 of your limbs, and 1 limb plays the melody while you're counting the click. Then you switch to your left hand and do the exact same thing. So if you really want to become a more balanced player, Simon Phillips comes to mind, balanced player. Check out Gary's book, New Breed. It will really, really help you. I was just teaching one of my advanced students out of New Breed yesterday. So that's a great book. Now, it's hard. New Breed is a very hard book, very hard. But stick with it. You're going to get better. Your coordination is going to go through the roof if you stick with that Gary's book. Amazing. Okay, back to the ego thing. If you're auditioning for a band, the last thing, guys, listen to my advice. I know what I'm talking about. I hope I know what I'm talking about. When you go to audition for a band and you show up and you walk in there all cocky, strutting your stuff, swinging your, twirling your drumsticks, and you're arrogant and, you know, you're just being a dick, you're not going to get hired. Because in my experience, anytime that I've ever been hired in a band, it's not just your playing ability, especially if you're in a situation where you're going to be on the road. It's your personality. Sell yourself the right way. Show up sober. Don't be high. Don't be an asshole. Come in prepared. If they tell you to learn the 6 songs, learn the 6 songs inside and out. I remember one time, Cherry Street Studios. For you Toronto musicians, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Cherry Street Studios in Toronto. What an awesome place. I got some stories about that place, but anyways, I go on audition there and for a band, and it was a pro band, but these guys were fairly new, which I didn't know. I thought they'd been around the scene for a long time, but actually they were new to the scene. The band was new. It was keyboards, vocals, guitar, bass, and then of course they were hiring a drummer. Anyways, I remember we were doing that song Closing Time by Tonic. I think it's by Tonic. You know the one, Closing Time, last call for alcohol. I'm not a singer. Anyways, you guys know the song. There's a bridge section that takes place, if I'm not mistaken, after the second chorus in the form. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's where the bridge is. It happens in the second, after the second chorus. These guys completely miss the drum fill that I set up to go into that, and they go back to a verse, and I'm like, I'm confused because, you know, well, it turns out they really didn't know their own songs. So I came in super prepared. The band that I was auditioning for, not so much. I did not take that gig. They offered me the job. I actually did well at the audition, but I decided, no, I'm not going to play with musicians that are not prepared. Kevin's got another comment here. Let's see. This happened when I played live as an opening act on someone's drums. What do you mean, Kevin? What happened? You mean you were forced to play right-handed? Is that what you mean? That you're a left-handed drummer, but they wouldn't allow you to switch the drums around? Can you clarify that for me, Kevin? I think that's what. Okay, lost some abilities as one leg was stronger and more able. That's gonna yeah. You know, when it comes to your feet, exact same thing. Now, here's a really good piece of advice. Another great book, Stick Control. It's not only good for your hands. When I studied with Dom Famulero, and I studied with him for over 16 years, so I spent a lot of time with Dom. I actually became his assistant. When he would come to Canada and do master classes and clinics, I would be a guy that would help him out in any way that he needed help. And especially at the master classes where, he'd be on stage, there'd be 50 people in the class, and I would go wander around and help people, making sure that, they got the bent wrist, they're holding the sticks properly, fluidity of motion, et cetera, et cetera. Anyways, so one of the things that Dom showed me was stick control. Spent a lot of time on stick control, but he also showed me run stick control with your feet. So, singles with the feet, then you start with your left hand, number 2, number 3, doubles, right, left, but with your feet. And what you do on the ride cymbal against that is maybe quarter notes on the ride, okay? And then your left hand is playing, it's like a half note feel, so your left hand is playing on beat 3. The focus is not the right and left hand, the focus is the feet, but you want the hands just to create some groove and some feel. So follow stick control with your feet, quarter notes on beat 3, halftime type of feel. So when you show up at an audition, you want to make sure that they're going to like you. And I don't mean being fake, because that happened to me too, man. Oh my God. I don't want to go off on all these stories. I could go off on a million tangents, but I can remember hiring a guitar player in my band, and he was not the guy I thought he was. He portrayed himself in one way. Once I got to know him, he was a completely different person, almost scary, in the sense that he had 2 personalities. It was bizarre. I never believed in that stuff where people talk about multiple personalities, but I witnessed it. And now I'm a believer that people can, in fact, have different personalities. Because I hire the guy and he's one way, and I really liked him. He seemed like he was a good guitar player, and he was a great guy. And then all of a sudden, as I'm working with him and playing, we see the decline. He was a good player, but the personality part of it. So when you show up and you're auditioning, make sure that they are going to like you, but don't be fake. Be yourself, but do the things that you should be doing to be a professional. Have some fun, enjoy yourself. Always have fun at an audition, no matter what. Even if you're nervous, you definitely want to have fun. So, okay, so Kevin here. Okay, so that happened on the gig. Man, that's crazy. Where, back to Kevin's comment here, so you guys know what I'm talking about. So he's playing a live act on someone else's drums, and he was forced to go from left-handed to right-handed playing. Whoa, that's difficult. That would be very difficult, especially if they say you're not switching the drums. Man, I mean, I've played tons of gigs where, like, especially festival gigs, where you're playing on someone else's drums. Most times they will allow you to alter things to some degree, because, you got to be comfortable. I couldn't imagine absolutely playing left-handed. I couldn't do it. I would have to switch to right. So more power to you, Kevin, that you could do that. That's amazing, man. Really amazing. So continuing on my theme today, the ego. So your ego is going to get you in trouble, especially if the ego is usually associated. This is how I think of egos, because I don't consider myself to be egotistical. Confidence, good. Always be confident. When you're up there, you're doing your thing, you're shredding, you're playing, be confident. Even if you think you're doing maybe not even the right thing, play with confidence, because confidence is really important. Ego, that's a whole different thing. You're going to get fired off the gig. And I'll give you an example. One time I got a call, I don't know, 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, from a girl singer that I know. She has her own band, but I was a sub in the band. I was not a regular player. And she calls me up in a panic and says, I'm in Hamilton. I'm playing not far from you. I just fired the drummer. I need you to come out and finish the night. Now, unbelievably, I wasn't working. I don't know why. Because normally when one band is working and they call a professional musician to work for them, in that situation where it's I think it was a Friday or Saturday night, we're almost always all working. Friday, Saturday, those are the two big nights for musicians to work. I mean, if it was a Monday night, yeah, I hardly ever work on a Monday night except teaching. But in terms of gigging, Monday night's a rare night. I mean, I have played Monday nights, especially on tour, but so she calls me and says, I've just fired the drummer. You need to get down here. So I talked to my wife and she says, go. We're not doing anything. We're just hanging out. Go. And she says, I'll pay you full, even though it's only a set and a half or two. I think it was 2 sets. Sorry. You come down and I want you to fill in. So I'm not going to name any names because I know you guys are thinking, oh, who was the drummer? I'm not going to name any names. If you watch any of my other videos, when I talk about some of the shittier stuff, the negative stuff, I don't drag the guy down because he just may have had a bad night. Who knows? Plus, I'll tell you something right now. This guy is a well-known pro drummer in the Canadian scene. He's a great drummer. I look up to him. When I was a kid, I was a huge fan. He's been around for a long time, but I'm not going to name him. Anyways, I show up. Turns out that I had to bring my drums, but I brought a real small version of what I normally bring, the Ringo setup. And she had already told the management that there's going to be a slight delay in starting the next set because I'm waiting for a drummer. He's got to set up. So I get there, I set up, I finish the rest of the show, everything's fine. And then I just said, first of all, who was the drummer? She tells me, and then she says, he was overplaying like crazy. Now, this guy's got chops, this drummer that I'm talking about. He's got chops. Like, he's a great, great drummer, but he's got ego too. And unfortunately, I found out from talking to some other guys in the scene, this has happened to him a number of times. Now, it's never happened on the gig. It's very, very rare. If any of you guys out there are, gigging musicians, it's almost unheard of to fire a guy on the spot. After the show is over, the guy can get fired or the next day or whatever. I mean, that happens all the time. But to actually be fired on the gig is rare, unheard of. It's only happened that I know of in my career once, and that was this time. Turns out he was overplaying, and she kept telling him, stop playing so much, stop doing all the fills while I'm still singing. And he was, I don't know, doing his Neil Peart thing. It wasn't Neil Peart. And he was just playing a lot of fills, overplaying like crazy, and he got canned at the end of the first set. Crazy, man, crazy. And like I said, I came in and I finished the show for her. She was really happy. She paid me in full and gave me a tip. Tips are always welcome. So his ego got in the way. That's what was happening. Because, for example, I remember one of the tunes that she told me they played in the first set was Sugar Pie Honey Bunch. You know that tune, The Temptations. Sugar Pie Honey Bunch, you know I love you. Can't help myself. Got to. It's just a quarter note, kind of a feel, He was doing that, but playing fills all over the place on top of that. Well, man, that's not going to groove. It's just wrong for the song. Anyways, the point I'm trying to make is the most important thing is when you're on the gig, play what's best for the song, what's best for the band. Don't let your ego get in the way. Like, it happened to me at an audition one time where I was studying with a drummer by the name of Rick Gratton, fantastic Toronto drummer, Rick Gratton. He had a book out that he just released called Rick's Licks. And he's a linear funk player. Awesome. Rick was an awesome player. He's retired now. He just does, he's the guy that does, whenever you buy a drum book and you see, the drum notation, he's a guy that does drum notations for all the big drumming companies now. He's a drum notator, and I'm sure he's making more money doing that than he was as a drummer, no doubt. Anyways, I went through a heavy duty Rick's Licks phase where I was playing linear like crazy. I show up for this band audition and I'm playing Rick's licks, and that was a huge mistake. My ego got in the way. They did not like the way I was playing. They said, "Man, you know, you're really good. We like what you're doing to some extent, but we can't follow you." And I made a huge mistake. That was one audition that I made a huge mistake at. I let my ego get in the way. So the tip for today is keeping it real, people. You want to keep it real. Keep it real musically. So if you're showing up and you're playing R&B gig, you know, you want to make sure that you keep those grooves straight ahead. Straight ahead grooves. And don't think you're Neil or you're Lars or you're anybody else that's going to be overplaying. If you play what the song requires, that's what's going to get you the gig in terms of staying in the band, and they're going to like you because you're playing the time. Honestly, guitar players, singers, bass players, they don't care about drum licks. You know who cares about drum licks? Drummers. That's it. Now, most gigs, let's be honest, how many drummers are in a crowd? Say you're playing a gig and there's 1,000 people. Okay, let's say there's 5 drummers in the crowd. Are you really only playing to those 5? Or do you want to play to the 1,000 people, the other 995? Think about the crowd as a whole. They're there to hear the band. They're there to hear the song. They're not necessarily there to hear your fancy drum licks. Steve Gadd 101. I remember Steve Gadd saying that when I went to his clinic. You know, always play to the music, always play to the song, and let your ego, you know, kick that ego out the door. Okay, here we go. I got a question here from Freddie something face. Hi, Tim. What do you think of singers suing iPads while they perform? My singer does and thinks it is fine. I disagree. Love the vids. Keep them coming. Singers suing iPads? I don't understand. Do you mean playing iPads? Is that what you mean? Or, do you mean the singer? Oh, I see what you mean. Okay, now I get it. Sorry. So the singer is using the iPad to read the lyrics. I'm okay with that in the beginning because, yeah, using, got it, man. I'm okay with the singer using an iPad in rehearsal, totally, because I use a lot of sheet music in rehearsal. On the gig, maybe when the band's first starting out, you know, your first few gigs using it, and then once you've got to practice, rehearse at home, get your shit together, and then lose the iPad. You've got to learn all the material. You know, I used to play in this band with this girl singer. Her name was Amanda. And in practice, she would use the iPad or a phone or whatever. But on the gig, never. Oh, one of my lights just went out. Excuse me for 1 second here. Don't know what happened. There we go. Quickly fix that. Yeah. So she was pro, man. She was pro. She sang in, she was one of the actors and singers in Lion King. So she was top notch pro. So like I said, we would learn, you know, we were constantly revamping our set list because, you know, you had your standards that you always played that people want to hear, but then we would cycle through other songs throughout the course of the band's lifetime, which ended up being about, I think I ran that band for about 7 or 8 years, something like that. And in that time, she was pro. Amanda always learned her songs, and she was a great singer. She was a great dancer. She actually was a graduate from, I think, the Toronto School of Dance or Toronto Ballet School or something like that. So she was a dancer and a singer and an actor. She was the whole package, man. So when we were on stage, she was captivating. The people loved her. I missed playing with her. I disbanded that band about, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, and I still miss that band. They were really awesome. But yeah, to answer your question, I think that to get to the pro level, you got to lose the iPad at some point. I hope that answers your question, Freddie. So the next step about the ego. I tell you a quick funny story. You know, I remember playing this gig. I used to play in a Beatles tribute and played this gig, and oh oh man, there was 20,000 people at this Beatle festival. We were the feature act at the Beatle festival. And you get up on stage and we do our thing. Excuse me. After the show, lots of people, oh man, you guys sound just like the Beatles, and asking questions, and you're meeting people, you're talking to people, and people are shaking your hand. They want pictures with you, and they want pictures of the drum kit and the stage, and it's exciting. It's exciting. And you can't help but get caught up in that excitement when people are all around you and they're really excited to talk to you and meet you. And the key is, in that situation, is not to let your ego go, because the next day when I got home, my wife it's just me and my wife there, and my kids, and it's back to the normal routine. You're just a husband and a dad, and you're taking the garbage out, you're doing the dishes, you're barbecuing, cleaning up the house. You know what I mean? The whole star thing is fleeting. The whole, you're idolized by people. It's not the real world. And another thing I've talked about in the past with my students, because my teenage boy students, they want to get it. They want to be a drummer because they want to meet chicks. I want to meet some chicks, man. I get it. You're going to meet chicks. I get it. But you're going to be in a restaurant before the show. You're going to see a table full of girls. They're not paying any attention to you, man. They're not interested in you in any way, shape, or form. Then it turns out they're at your show and you're up on stage. After the show, they want to talk to you. They want to meet you. They want to come backstage. Now because they think you're a somebody. Well, guess what? I never changed. I didn't change from the guy that was a nobody in the bar or the restaurant to the guy that was performing on stage. I never changed. I'm still the same person. So this whole perception and persona that so many people have of artists, that they're different than them. We're no different. There is no difference. I remember studying with Zorro the drummer and going to Nashville and taking lessons with him, and he's Lenny Kravitz's drummer. And I remember him telling me about how Lenny handled fans and how he was brilliant at dealing with people and stuff. And he was telling me the same thing, that when he was with Lenny, he was a star. But when he was walking down the street by himself, nobody knew who he was. So the ego thing, keep that in check. That's my whole purpose of this video today. Don't let being on stage become a big thing where you think you're something that you're really not. Because I'm going to tell you, when you leave that stage, you're just Joe Blow on the street. Now, there's exceptions. Elvis Presley, Michael Jackson, Stevie Wonder, the great, great superstars. Though that's a whole different thing, man. Those guys got egos, but they're world-class stars. But I can remember playing at a Stevie Ray Vaughan tribute and also a Frank Sinatra tribute, and those guys that were, the guy that thought he was Stevie and the guy that thought he was Frank Sinatra, their egos were out of control. And I can remember thinking, man, these guys, it's difficult working with people like that too, because you want to keep yourself in check. Canadian Idol, which was the Canadian version of American Idol. I can remember doing a few gigs with them, and these kids would come up there and they'd be shitting their pants before they go on stage. And afterwards, when the show was over and the nerves weren't there anymore, they would be cocky and, signing autographs, and they thought they were a star, but let's be honest, it's just a TV show. You're not really a star, and you're just starting out anyways, So keep that ego under wraps. You're going to go further as a musician if you just show up. You're very humble. One of the most humble guys I've ever known in the music industry. Fantastic. I'll give you a few guys that I met. Some of them I know better than others. Some of them I've only met once or twice. But Ray Luzier from Korn, humble. Oh my God, what an awesome guy Ray is. I met him a couple times. He's very humble. He jokes around about how his mom's his biggest fan and truly his only fan. And another guy is Greg Bissonette, Ringo's drummer. Also, he used to play with David Lee Roth. Greg Bissonette had some lessons with Greg. What a humble guy, man. The guy is playing with Ringo. He's playing with the biggest rock star in the world next to Paul McCartney and Mick Jagger and Keith Richards. You know, Ringo's huge. And Greg, humble, really humble, complimentary, and very, very humble, cool guy. Really cool. Now, there's a reason why guys like Ray and Greg and another guy is Kenny Aronoff. I mean, they're highly skilled players, very highly skilled players. But on top of their skill, they're great people with low ego. And they play to the music, they play to the songs. I mean, Ray has got some skills like some of the double bass phrasing that he does. His hand and foot combinations are out of this world. What a fantastic player. On top of being an incredibly skilled and amazing player, he gives back to the fans a lot. He's very generous, donates a lot of money, and the guy's super smart. I remember talking to him about his businesses. He owns a distillery, he owns a restaurant. I think he owns a fashion line. The guy has invested his money into many other things. So instead of just thinking, you know, I'm a rock star and that's it, he's decided I'm going to take this money and I'm going to put it into other things. I'm not sure if it's a wine distillery or vodka or spirits, something like that. He has some kind of a distillery, if I'm not mistaken. And he's investing his money in other things, and he's making money outside of music. Outside of music, he's making money. And that's what people who, when you have a lot of money to invest, do it, you know? And the ego on these guys is non-existent. And that's what I love about, you know, guys like that. Now, when I play with guys, I play with some really great musicians around the Toronto area and from the US too. I played with a lot of American artists that are really, really awesome. But the best ones and the ones that I had the most fun with over my 40-year career are the guys that were amazing players with low ego. And you could just feel the fact that these guys are humble. Now, traditionally, drummers and bass players are the humblest in bands. You know, Neil Peart was a very humble guy. Neil's my favorite drummer of all time. I love Neil, but he was a very humble guy. Incredibly talented, unbelievably talented. Neil was brilliant, but he would never tell you that. Just listen to him play. He wouldn't have to tell you that. Wayne Gretzky comes to mind. Very humble guy, you know? Okay, Kevin, let's see what we got here. Another comment. Lead singers and lead guitarists usually have the ego and the persona to match, but drummers and bass players of the rhythm section that keeps the time. Tricks are for kids. That's true. You know, I'm not going to drag down the singer and guitarist, but in my experience, Kevin's right a lot of times. But can I say something in their defense? And that is that when you're up on stage, if you've ever been up on stage and everybody is looking at you, the bass player tends to shy off a little bit, stick closer to that drummer in his comfort zone. But the guitar player and singer, they move out to the front of stage. And they're right out in front of the crowd. There has to be a persona and an ego that goes with that. The cockiness of the lead singer ruling that stage, prancing around and ruling the stage. I can't say enough about how important that is. And the guy that comes to mind, of course, is Queen, the lead singer from Queen. When that guy would get out on stage, oh my God, there's nobody in a band. I'm not talking about individual artists like Michael Jackson and Elvis and stuff like that, but in a band situation, the In Excess is another one. The lead singer from In Excess. Those guys will get out on stage and they rule the stage. Now, in a case like a guitar player, you've got Eddie Van Halen. The man ruled the stage. You've got a guy like Guns N' Roses, you know, the guy with the top hat, his name Slash, sorry, Slash, right? He rules the stage. So there has to be a certain amount of arrogance and cockiness to them. However, once they leave the stage, the persona should be done. Now they're back to being normal people, as I mentioned, and the ego's got to go. When you have a singer and a guitar player and they leave the stage and the ego didn't leave with them, that's a problem. And I've dealt with those people. That is definitely a problem. I've seen it in tribute bands. I've seen it in ticketed venue bands. I've seen it in bar bands. I mean, you're going to get ego from people everywhere, but you can't avoid that. All I'm doing here today is trying to keep it real for my viewers and letting you know that I approach music with a confidence, always learn the songs. I'm always confident. I always show up prepared, do my thing, want to play to the highest level that I can play at. Maybe show a little bit of ego on stage, you know, a little stick twirling, showing the audience what's what. But I always play to the song, always try to make the band look good and feel good. And I always try to help the singer, because I know in a lot of band situations, the singer takes the cues from the drummer. A lot of you don't know that. The singer in the band, a lot of bands I played in and still play in, the singer gets cued from what you're doing on the drums. Now, they're not going to take cues from you if you don't know what you're doing. If you're not confident, they are not going to take cues from you. But my level of confidence is, I'm very confident in what I do when I get on stage. So the singers, they know they can trust me. They know they can rely on me. They know that I'm prepared and I know the songs inside and out. In some cases, I learn the songs better than anyone in the band. That's my personal approach. It's got nothing to do with ego. It's got to do with preparedness and confidence. Then the ego doesn't even have to exist. I don't have to, like Neil, you know, just let your playing show who you are and what you're all about. You don't have to talk about yourself. You don't have to brag about yourself. You don't have to say all these great things about who you are and whatever. Get up on stage and play, man. Everybody's going to see it. Okay? So that's my advice today about keeping it real. Now, do we have any more questions from any of you guys? I got a few guys on here, and I'm excited to welcome people onto my channel. One of the reasons why I do live streams and a Labor Day live stream. Cheers. I like having people on my channel because I like to interact with the viewers. That's why I'm doing this live stream today on Labor Day. No labor for me today. Like I said at the beginning of my video here, it all starts for me tomorrow in terms of back to the grind. You know, my son has left for university. He's moved out. We moved him out on Saturday and he's gone off to university. He's a varsity level swimmer and he's also studying the environmental studies at university. So I wish my son the best. If he's watching here, I doubt he is because, you know, he's a university guy now. But that's a big change in my life. My son moving out and him leaving, that was, not easy. And tomorrow, everybody is back to school and work. So anyways, guys, I am going to leave you. If you want to ask a question, I always give a little buffer period here. If you have something to say or you want to ask me a question, now is the time, because I'm going to shut this down in a moment. And I want to thank those people that did engage me. I encourage the comments and the engagement. I really enjoy it. Oh, question here from Kevin. What gear do you prefer? Heads, drum set, cymbals, sticks? Okay, well, this is oh man, we're going to be here all day, Kev. I'm going to give this a very short. Drum sets, I love Yamaha drums. I'm currently not endorsed by Yamaha. I have had endorsements, not with Yamaha, but with Thai drums in the past. And my go-to kit, I have 3 of them, is a Yamaha, various Yamaha kits. The kit behind me, which you can't really see, this kit here, you can sort of see it here. This is a Yamaha recording custom kit. And I have a whole video on my channel where I talk all about this drum kit, and I do a full review and everything. So here you can actually see an 8-inch version of it up close. So that's a Yamaha Recording Custom, same drums Steve Gadd uses. And I love these drums. This is an 8-inch. It is a beauty. And they're one of the reasons why I love Yamaha is this mounting system. I love this mounting system. It's unbelievable how you can set the drums up using this mounting system. You can place them anywhere. It's really great. I mainly play Sabian cymbals, mainly. I enjoy Sabian cymbals. As far as sticks go, I have an endorsement with Vic Firth, and I use Vic Firth Extreme 5/8. That's my stick of choice, which I happen to have one right here. So that's my stick of choice, Vic Firth Extreme 5A. Now, why is it extreme? What does extreme mean? Well, extreme means the stick's a tiny bit longer. A normal 5A would end probably about there. So I've got a little bit more to the stick, and it's a tiny bit heavier. But as you can see, it's not a thick, heavy stick. It's perfect for me. This is my stick of choice. When I got the endorsement, Vic Firth sent me, I don't know, 55 different drumsticks. You can keep them all, but pick one that you're going to use and we're going to send you. And I picked this one. Out of all those sticks, this is the one that I picked. And it's an awesome stick. I really love these sticks. Drum heads, Evans. Evans is my go-to. And I've got some videos that I've done with Evans drum heads on my channel as well. Evans drum heads, I love them. Remo are great too. I mean, you know, they're both great, but Evans is my preferred choice. And these heads right here, I did a video on them a little while ago, and I just haven't swapped them out. These are the Evans hydraulic. What I usually use, which I don't see them right here handy, but what I usually use is the Evans G2 clear. That's my go-to. So I hope that answers your question, Kevin. Anybody else have anything they want to say? Otherwise, I am going to be cutting this. I'm going to be cutting out of here. It's almost an hour that I have been talking here, and I'm starting to get tired. I'm talking too much. I sincerely do appreciate the questions and the comments, though, guys. All right. I guess that's the end of this. Thank you very much for tuning in. I got some more videos coming out soon. I got some really cool stories coming up. And you guys have been sending me some really motivating and amazing comments. And I really want to thank. Yeah, cheers to you too, Kevin. Thanks for all the comments and questions, man. Brilliant. Just brilliant. I really appreciate, I've been getting some really awesome comments about guys telling me about how they really enjoy listening to the stories. These are all real things that happen to me. You got to remember, 40 years of touring, playing, performing. I mean, I've been everywhere. I've been I've never toured in Europe. One of my students, check out a band called the Commoners. Sorry, the Commoners. My student Adam is in Europe. I think he's back now, but a guy tours Europe all the time. And check out the Commoners. They got songs on YouTube. I highly recommend them. They're a great band. So 54 years playing drums, Kevin. Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, 52 for me, almost 53, coming up on 53. So we're in the same ballpark, my friend. All right, guys, I am going to let you go now. Have yourself a great Labor Day. And as always, keep drumming. See ya.